Just taking a moment to settle into whatever shape you've chosen. If you're sitting, let yourself get heavier through both hips. Notice the parts of the legs that connect with the ground. And if you're laying down on your back, noticing all of the connections between the body and the ground, all the way from the head down to the heels. And at each and every place where the body makes contact with the ground, allow yourself to settle in a little bit more heavily. Let yourself soften down, sinking into that support. And we'll start at the toes, working our way all the way up, scanning through the body and noticing any areas where you're holding on, where you feel tension, and consciously softening and relaxing through those areas. Releasing the toes, allowing them to find whatever position is natural, softening through the inner arches of the feet, relaxing the ankles, finding heaviness through the calves and the shins. Sinking down through the thighs, through the hips. And continuing all the way up, softening the belly, softening the low back. Maybe draw your shoulders down your back, broadening a little bit more through the chest. Let your shoulders hang heavy. Lengthening the back of the neck, so the top of the head is parallel with the ground or the ceiling. If you're sitting up, and tucking your chin and slightly lengthening the back of the neck so that you feel a connection between the lower part of the back of your skull and the ground if you're laying down. Softly closing your eyes or letting your gaze rest on something that's not moving, something that's still and calming for you. Relaxing the muscles of the jaw. Releasing the forehead. And gradually allowing yourself to come into a more settled, more grounded state. Without trying to change anything, let's start to bring a little bit of awareness to our breathing. Noticing the feeling of the breath moving into the body and the feeling of the breath moving back out of the body. As you inhale and exhale, notice what parts of the body move with your breath. Maybe your shoulders rise and fall. Maybe your chest expands and contracts. Maybe your belly lifts and lowers. And notice any sensation that comes with that breath and that movement. Where in the body can you feel the breath as you breathe in? And where in the body can you feel it as you breathe out? And if you did notice that your breath was a bit shallow or short, on your next inhale, imagine drawing that air a little bit more deeply into the body. Not necessarily taking in more air, just consciously drawing that air all the way down the length of the spine, first filling up the lungs, expanding the rib cage, and then allowing the belly to rise as the air travels down even deeper. As you exhale, go in the reverse. Let the belly soften, let the air travel back up and out, lungs empty, ribs knit back together. Letting each breath be slow and intentional. Allowing the inhale to fill you up completely. And the exhale to bring softness, bring release into the body. And from here, we'll start to invite a little bit of movement back into the body, still continuing with that same slow, deep breathing, but now starting to gently wiggle fingers and wiggle toes. Maybe turn your head from side to side. And start to roll through the wrists. We'll bring the body back to stillness. If you are laying down, drawing your knees into your chest, rolling over to one side of the body, and then slowly making your way up to whatever seated position is most comfortable for you. You can have your legs crossed or extended. If you would prefer to sit on a couch or a chair or a bed, you can do that as well. Once you find your seated position, grounding down equally through both sides of the body, letting both sitting bones connect with the ground or with whatever you're sitting on. Lengthen up through the crown of the head, sit a little bit taller. And from here, let's drop the chin down towards the chest and then gently roll the chin over towards one shoulder. We'll go back down through center and over to the other side. Taking your time here. Moving slowly side to side. And again, tuning into any sensation that comes with this little bit of movement. If you notice any area of your neck, your shoulders that feels a little bit tight, you can always pause and take a few slow breaths wherever you find that tightness before starting to move once again. And then we'll bring the head back to stillness and let's start to roll through the shoulders, lifting shoulders up to the ears as we inhale, squeezing them together, drawing them down the back as we exhale. Really focusing on squeezing the shoulders together as you draw them down. And breathing those same full deep breaths. Focusing equally on inhale and exhale. And let's roll those shoulders the other direction, still lifting up as we inhale, but then rolling the shoulders forward, spreading the shoulder blades nice and wide as we exhale. Focusing on creating more space in between the shoulders. Maybe noticing the movement of your shoulder blades along your rib cage. Matching your movement with your breath. Bringing the shoulders back to stillness. As we inhale, let's reach both hands up overhead. We'll interlace the fingers, turn the palms up, and then draw the hands down in front of the body, releasing the hands at the bottom and bringing them back out to the sides. Using each inhale to take the hands up overhead, maybe letting your gaze lift as well. As you exhale, interlace the fingers, turn the palms out, and draw those hands down in front of you. Continuing at your own pace. Once again, focusing on matching your movement with your breath. So letting the hands lift for the same length of time as it takes you to breathe in. And letting the hands lower for the same length of time as it takes you to breathe out. If you like, you can close your eyes to help you focus on the sensation of the breath, the feeling of the arms moving. Or as I mentioned before, you might let your gaze travel with your hands, lifting up as you inhale and dropping down as you exhale. As we complete our next inhale, let's leave both hands extended up towards the ceiling. We'll drop the left hand down onto the floor and then reach that right arm up and across towards the left side, lengthening the right side of the body, anchoring down through the right hip. Often there's a tendency to let that right shoulder fall forward. So if you notice that happening with you, see if you can draw it back, let your shoulders be in the same plane of movement as the hips. Reaching up with each breath in, lengthening, and then as you exhale, maybe folding over towards the left a little bit more deeply. Really taking your time here and focusing as much on lengthening as you do on bending. Creating space and gently moving into the pose. And with the next inhale, let's take both hands all the way back up. We'll drop the right hand down and then extend the left arm up and across. Again, checking in here, lining the shoulders up with the hips. Reaching up as you inhale and across as you exhale. Letting your left hip be really heavy on the ground. Finding a stretch all along the left side of the body. And let's come back upright. We'll drop that left hand down onto the left knee or left thigh. We'll press into both hands to sit up nice and tall. And then start to draw the right shoulder back. Look over the right shoulder as you exhale, coming into a gentle twist. As you inhale, press into the floor, into your leg with both hands. Lift up through the crown of the head. And as you exhale, anchor down through both hips and open towards the right side of the room. Being mindful that your hands are there to support you in lifting up taller, not necessarily in twisting deeper. You should be able to lift your hands at any time and stay in the same twisted position. If you find that you lift your hands and you come out of the twist a little bit, place your hands back down and remain there. Focus on that lift as you inhale and soften as you exhale. And as we inhale next, we'll come back to center. We'll bring the right hand onto the right knee, left hand back behind or beside us. Press into both hands to sit up tall. Take a nice deep breath in, and then as you exhale, open towards the left side. Draw the left shoulder back. Look over that left shoulder towards the back wall. As you breathe in, lengthen. As you breathe out, see if you can find a little bit of softness, a little bit of release. And let's release. We'll come all the way back to center. From here, let's move into a tabletop shape. So if you're sitting on a chair or couch, you'll need to come down onto the floor. Then we'll meet up on our hands and our knees. Stacking our wrists under our shoulders and knees under our hips. Toes can be flat on the floor or they can be tucked under, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And we'll start here by moving through a few rounds of cat and cow. As we inhale, let's drop the belly down, draw the shoulders back and look forward. And as we exhale, let's round the spine. We'll spread the shoulders and look back to the knees. We'll go back and forth between these two movements, inhaling to lengthen the front of the body as we drop the belly down and look forward, and exhaling to lengthen the back of the body as we drop the head and look back, pressing the floor away. You can make these movements bigger or smaller, depending on what suits your body right now. And if you feel like you want to pause in either a cat or a cow and take a couple of deep breaths there, you're welcome to do that as well. Exploring what this movement feels like for you in this moment. And if you are continuing to move between the two, focus on matching your movement with your breath. Let your inhale take the same length of time as it takes you to move into cow. And your exhale take the same length of time as it takes you to move into cat. And let's bring it back to stillness. We'll find a neutral tabletop. Taking a moment to press the floor away, draw the lower belly up and in. So the spine is in a neutral position, looking straight down towards the floor. From here, as we inhale, let's take the right hand out to the side and then up towards the ceiling, opening the body towards the right. And as we exhale, we'll drop the hand back down. As you inhale, lift that hand up nice and high, opening up. And as you exhale, drop the hand back down. We'll do one more on this side. And then we'll switch to the other side. Inhaling, taking the left hand straight up. And exhaling and bringing it back down. As you inhale, opening towards the left side of the room. And as you exhale, finding that neutral spine, pressing the floor away, finding tabletop. One more. Good. From here, let's keep the hips lifted. We'll keep the knees a little bit wider than hip distance apart. And we'll start to walk the hands out in the front of the body, finding extended puppy pose. Drawing the chest and the forehead down towards the mat, lengthening the tailbone up and back. If it's comfortable for you, keeping your arms straight. If it feels too uncomfortable, too much intensity on the shoulders, you can bend through the elbows, crossing your forearms in front of your body. Coming onto your elbows. Wherever you are, lengthening tailbone up and back. Pressing the hips up and back. And drawing the chest and forehead down towards the mat. And with each inhale, focus on lengthening your fingertips forward, tailbone back. And with the exhale, find a little bit of softness. See if you can drift a little bit closer to the mat without forcing anything. And let's release. We'll walk the hands back up towards the body. We'll take the knees even wider apart, as wide as the mat. Untuck the toes and let the big toes come towards one another, and then settle the hips down towards the heels. From here, you can stay pretty upright if you want to. You can focus on drawing your hips down towards your heels, and again, lengthening your tailbone down and back. If you'd like, you can walk your arms out in front of your body, bringing your forehead and chest down towards the mat once again, this time in a more relaxed position. You can let your elbows bend, let your hands rest wherever they're comfortable. Another option would be to take your arms back alongside your body, reaching your fingertips towards your toes, letting your forehead rest on the mat, letting your shoulder blades separate. And we'll take a few deep breaths here, allowing the hips to lengthen down and back, and feeling how the breath moves the rib cage along the back of the body. Often when we focus on the breathing, we focus more on the front of the body. So taking a moment here to notice how the ribs expand and contract as you breathe in and out. Notice any sensation along the length of the spine through the muscles that support the back. And then from here, we'll make our way all the way back up to our tabletop, taking your time to get there. Stacking shoulders under, excuse me, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Spreading the fingertips nice and wide. Toes can be flat on the floor or they can be tucked under. From here, we'll take the right hand and place it towards the middle of the mat, directly below your face. Then we'll step the right foot just outside of that right hand, setting up for a low lunge here. Stacking the right knee over the right ankle. The toes can point either straight forward or slightly out to the side towards the top right corner of the mat. What we're going to look for here is a little bit of a stretch along the front of the left hip. So if you already feel it, you can stay right where you are. If you don't feel it just yet, come a little bit lighter on your fingertips. Walk those hands back up the body and place the hands either on the hips or on the right thigh. From here, we're going to scoop the tailbone under, adjusting the position of the pelvis. And then notice what that does to the sensation along the front of your left hip. If you feel it now, maybe this is where you want to stay. If you're still not quite feeling it, you can heel toe your right foot a little bit further forward, shifting your weight a little bit further forward as you go. Taking it just a little bit at a time, looking for the start of the stretch along the front of that left hip. And then line your knee up over your ankle. Square your hips and shoulders towards the front of your mat. And if you are in the upright position, you can leave your hands on your thigh or on your hips for support, or if you prefer, you can take them to your heart center or extend them up overhead, taking whichever variation suits you best right now. And with each inhale, lengthen up through the crown of the head. As you exhale, soften your shoulders, sink down equally into both legs. Find some softness. And take one or two more slow, deep breaths here. Continue to work with your breath to make your way into the pose. And taking it a little bit at a time, inhaling, lengthening up, finding some more space. Exhaling, sinking down, settling in. And from here, let's lower the hands back down onto the mat. Take the right foot back beside the left. And we'll find our neutral tabletop once again. Pressing into the fingertips. Moving away from the floor, finding a neutral spine, and check in at your hips here. Notice, how do your legs feel? How do your hips feel? And as you breathe in and out, does it feel differently on one side of the body from the other? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And then when you're ready, take your left hand towards the center of your mat and step your left foot just outside of your left hand. Once again, we'll start by stacking knee over ankle. Toes can either point straight forwards or slightly open to the side towards that top left corner of the mat. And checking in at the front of the right hip. If you feel a stretch here, you can stay right where you are. If you don't feel it just yet, coming a little bit lighter on your fingertips and making your way to an upright position. You can rest your hands on your hips or on your left thigh. And again, we'll do that little adjustment of the position of the pelvis, tucking the tailbone under and pressing the hips slightly forward. And then notice the front of your right hip. If you're still not quite feeling it where you are, and you need to move into a deeper variation, you can walk your left foot a little bit further forward, just a little bit at a time. Stack your knee over your ankle, check how that feels, and then decide if you still need to move deeper. Once you find that place where you start to feel the stretch along the front of your right hip, pause there. You can leave your hands where they are on your hips or your thigh for support, or you could choose to bring your hands together in front of your heart or extend them up overhead. Wherever they are, finding a little bit of energy through the hands. If they're extended overhead, spreading the fingers nice and wide. If they're pressing together, really pressing the palms, finding some activity through the muscles of the arms. And the same thing if they're resting on your hips or on your thigh, finding a little bit of activity through the arms by pressing into whatever's supporting the hands. Breathing nice and slow in and out, lifting up as you inhale and settling down as you exhale. And then let's release the hands back down onto the mat. And we'll step the left foot back beside the right. And this time we'll make our way to an upright kneeling position. From here, we'll take our hands and we'll place them at the low back with the fingertips pointing down, palms pressing into the sacrum. So that triangular flat piece where the hips and the spine meet. We're going to draw our elbows towards one another. Draw the shoulders back to create a little bit more space through the chest. If you have any challenges with your balance, sometimes a little bit more helpful to tuck your toes under in this position. Also, if you have any trouble with your knees, you can fold your mat so that there's a little bit more support underneath of them. Once you find a position that feels okay for you, keep drawing your elbows towards one another. Keep drawing your shoulders back and imagine lifting up through the chest. Imagine getting a little bit taller every single time you breathe in, lengthening that chest up towards the ceiling. If you're feeling pretty steady in your balance and you want to let your gaze lift as well, you can look up towards the ceiling on your next inhale. And see if you can focus on pressing your hips a little bit further forward as you exhale. So we'll alternate between inhaling, lifting up, and exhaling, softening the hips forward, gradually making our way into a camel pose, stopping at whatever point you find that edge of discomfort, that place where it maybe gets a little bit more difficult to breathe or you feel a little bit of a pull, some tension. And let yourself breathe wherever you're at. If it feels completely comfortable for you and you'd like to drop your hands back onto your heels or onto the floor, you can do that as well. Again, taking your time to get there. If there's any discomfort in your low back when you come down, just come right back up again. Come out of the pose for a moment. Find some length in your spine. Being really intentional with your movement here, choosing whichever option works best for you and your body. And take one or two more slow, deep breaths. Finding space through the chest, lengthening the spine, pressing those hips forward. And then with an inhale, we'll come all the way back up. Nice and slow, taking your time. We'll release the arms down at the sides. And we'll come to find a seated position for a moment. Whatever seated position is most comfortable for you. You can have your legs extended, or you can sit cross-legged. Pausing for a moment in a neutral shape. So no need to do anything here. Allow yourself to just settle into the ground equally through both sides of the body. And take a moment to observe. Checking in for sensation around the shoulders, the chest, the back. The muscles along the front of the thighs and across the top of the hips, maybe your knees. Breathing nice and slow in and out. And then we'll take our hands back behind us. We'll bend through the knees, placing the feet on the floor about hip distance apart. And then gently start to shift the knees side to side. Moving nice and slow and noticing the shift of the weight. So notice the transfer of weight from one hip to another. Notice different parts of the feet coming in contact with the ground as you move side to side. Notice the pressure between your hands and the ground. Let's bring it back to stillness. We'll draw the feet in a little bit closer and closer to each other. And then let the knees drop open to the sides, finding a bound angle, Baddha Konasana. There are a few different options here. You can choose to leave your hands back behind you for support. If you're already feeling a bit of a stretch along the inner thighs or anywhere else in the legs, this might be a good place to stay. If you don't feel it quite yet and you want to move into a deeper version of the pose, you can walk your hands forward and hold onto your ankles or your feet. Maybe draw those feet in a little bit closer. Wherever you're at, see if you can draw your knees down towards the ground, actively pressing your feet together. If you are sitting upright, taking a moment to lengthen up a little bit taller, draw the shoulders together and down the back, making some more space across the front of the chest, broadening the collarbone. And if you still feel like you want to go deeper here, you can hinge at the hips, leaning forward. Keep your gaze lifted so that your head stays in line with the rest of your spine. Maybe looking somewhere about 3 feet in front of your toes. As you inhale, lengthen up through the crown, sit up a little bit taller. As you exhale, focus on drawing your knees down. Focus on pressing your feet together. Breathing in and creating a little bit more space for yourself. And breathing out, finding a bit more softness. Really taking your time on this one, allowing yourself to gradually move maybe a little bit deeper with each exhale. And then we'll release, coming all the way back up. Let's take the feet out in front of us, either crossing the legs or extending them straight. And we'll pause for a moment to roll through the wrists, especially if you're resting your wrists behind you. It's a good idea to release them. And then from here, we'll make our way up to a standing position. So a few different ways to get there. You could simply just stand up. If you wanted to come through downward facing dog, you could find your tabletop position. Press the floor away. Press into the fingertips. Step your feet back and lift your hips up and back. And then slowly walk your feet forward or walk your hands back. Taking your time. And then with a long straight spine, rising straight up. Once you find your standing position, allow your feet to be about hip distance apart, maybe even a little bit wider. The toes can point straight forwards or they can open out a little bit to the sides again, finding an equal standing pose. Finding equal weight through both feet, letting the legs be equally heavy. From here, just like we did in our lunge, let's adjust the position of the pelvis slightly, just a little bit, tucking the tailbone down and back. Drawing the belly in, lengthening up through the crown of the head, softening the shoulders down and back, and spreading the fingers nice and wide. You can either have your palms facing towards your body or facing forwards, whichever feels more natural for you. Finding a little bit of energy through the hands by spreading those fingers nice and wide. Let's take a moment to lift the toes up off the mat. Notice the parts of the foot that connect with the ground. Usually it's the ball of the foot and the heel with the inner arch lifted and the toes lifted. Let's see if we can hold on to that as we lower the toes back down onto the mat. As we inhale here, let's lift up a little bit taller. And as we exhale, let's press down into those contact points. Make the legs a little bit more active. Feel the muscles of the thighs turn on as your kneecaps slightly lift. The tendency here again is to let the tailbone draw out, finding a little bit of a bow in the low back. Try to bring it back to a more neutral spine. There should be a little bit of a curve there, nothing too intense. Breathing up, lengthening. Breathing out, grounding. From here, let's take our hands onto our hips and keeping most of our weight in our left side. Now we'll slide our right foot back behind us, setting up for a high lunge. So we'll have our toes pointing forward, our heel lifted. We'll stack the left knee over the left ankle, and this pose looks very different for different people. So you might have a pretty short stance like I do. If you're feeling pretty flexible, you have a lot of room to move. Your muscle across the front of your right hip is not tight, so maybe you were able to move into a deeper version of the earlier pose. You might have your stance a little bit wider. Your left thigh might come more parallel with the ground, but we want to find something that feels comfortable, and we want our feet at enough distance apart so that our hips and shoulders can still square towards the front of the mat. So rather than having the feet really close together towards the center of the mat, we want a little bit of a wider stance, taking up more room width-wise on the mat. We'll press back through the right heel. And again, notice what that does for the front of the right hip. Tune into those little sensations. Start to find a little bit of activity through the right glute. You can choose to leave your hands on your hips, or you can bring them together at your heart center. Or again, you can extend them up overhead. Wherever you choose, finding that energy through your hands. As you inhale, lengthen up through the crown of the head. Again, notice the front of your right hip as you do that. As you exhale, press down, press back through the right heel. If at any point you feel like you want to adjust your stance, feel free to do so, taking it further apart or closer together. Sometimes as we sit in the pose for a few breaths, you find you have a little bit more room to move. So feeling free to take advantage of that if that's the case for you. Breathing in, lifting up, and breathing out, settling down. And let's bring the hands back down onto the hips. We'll turn the right toes open to the side, planting the heel down on the ground. So the outer edge of the right foot is parallel with the back of the mat. And you might need a little bit of a wider stance for this one. Setting up for a warrior two. We want, again, the left knee stacking over the left ankle. Tendency in this pose is to let that left knee fall inwards. We want to draw it back open and out, finding some activity along the outer left thigh through the left glute. And lean into it. We'll stack our shoulders over our hips, turning fully open to the side of the mat. And then we'll extend our arms out to the front and back of the mat. Here, let's draw our shoulders together, draw the shoulder blades down the back. Extend the fingers nice and wide, or draw the fingers together, again with some energy. Reach the fingers away from one another. And look over top of the left hand. You can choose to stay here in your warrior two, or you might drop your right hand down and lift your left hand up as you inhale, coming into exalted warrior. As you exhale, drop it back down to warrior two. Start to notice the muscles along your left leg maybe firing up a little bit more. Lean into it. Inhale, lift up. And exhale, find warrior two. And last one, exalted warrior. Really lengthening the left side of the body. And coming back to warrior two. Let's bring our hands onto our hips. We'll heel toe that right foot in until it's comfortable to step back to the top of the mat. And we'll find our mountain pose. So again, letting the feet be about hip distance apart or a little bit wider. Toes can point straight forwards or slightly open to the sides. We'll tuck the tailbone under slightly, draw the lower belly in, draw the shoulders down and back, extend the arms out, lift up through the crown of the head as you inhale, and root down, sink in as you exhale. Finding some stability, some grounding here. Breathing in to create some space. Breathing out to find that connection, find that support beneath you. From here, bringing hands onto hips. Keeping hips and shoulders square to the front of the mat, we'll start to transfer our weight into our right foot, and this time we'll slide our left foot back behind us. Again, setting up for a high lunge on this side. We'll have our heel lifted, our toes pointing forward on the left leg. We'll stack the right knee over the right ankle, finding whatever distance between your feet works for you. So again, if you have a little bit more room to move, if you're a little bit more flexible across the front of the left hip, your stance might be a little bit longer on your mat. If you're a little bit less flexible, your feet might be a little bit closer together. It could also be the length of your legs compared to the length of your mat. And then we want the feet wide enough apart on the mat so that the hips and shoulders can both square towards the front of the mat. So if you notice that you're opening out to the left side, see if you can step that left foot a little bit wider and then turn to face the front. And you can leave your hands on your hips for support, or you can bring them together in front of your heart or extend them up overhead. As you inhale, really reach up, lengthen up through the crown of the head. And as you exhale, press out, press down, find some energy through the legs. Making the legs a little bit more active with each exhale. Pressing out through the left heel, pressing down through the right foot, and finding a little bit more activity through the upper body as you breathe in. Really drawing that lower belly in and up, drawing the shoulders back, lifting up through the crown of the head, finding that space. Again, if you feel like you want to take your stance a little bit longer at any time or a little bit shorter at any time, you can do that. Keep that breath flowing smooth and steady. And then we'll return hands down onto the hips. And we'll turn the left toes open to the side, planting that left heel down. So again, here you might need to adjust the distance between your feet. Finding something that feels comfortable for you, so there's a pretty deep bend in your right knee. Your left leg is long and extended. The left outer edge of the foot lines up with the back of your mat. And then see if you can draw that right knee open. Get a little bit of activity along the outer right thigh through the right glute. And then lean into that right leg. Stack shoulders over hips. And extend the arms out to the front and back of the mat. Draw the shoulder blades together at the same time as we spread the fingers wide. So the arms are really active here. Fingers can either be spreading apart or drawing towards one another. And gaze is over top of the right hand. You can choose to stay here in Warrior Two, or if you'd like, you can move into Exalted Warrior, dropping the left hand and lifting the right hand as you inhale. And then coming back to Warrior Two as you exhale. Inhaling, lengthening up on the right side of the body. And exhaling, come back to Warrior Two. And last one, check in on your right knee. See if you're coming out of that lunge. Dive back into it. And then we'll make our way back to Warrior Two. Let's bring our hands onto our hips. We'll heel toe that left foot in. Again, just until you feel comfortable to step back to the top of your mat. And we'll release into our mountain pose. Finding that equal grounding. That lengthening. A feeling of strength, a feeling of stability. Noticing the feeling of your breath right now. And noticing any sensation in your legs, in your feet and your ankles. Scanning through the body. And just noticing what you notice. Notice what comes to your mind. And from here, we're going to make our way back down onto our mat. So whether you want to just come down to a seated position in whatever way you'd like, or if you'd like, you can come down through a malasana, a low squat. If you do want to take that option, taking your feet a little bit wider apart, slightly wider than your shoulders. You want your toes to point open the same direction as your knees. We'll bring our hands together at heart center, press those palms together. Again, find a little bit of activity through the arms. Soften the shoulders down. We'll take a nice deep breath in. And as we exhale, let's bend through the knees and lower the hips all the way down. Bring our elbows towards the insides of our knees. You can adjust the distance between your feet if you need to. Find something that feels comfortable for you. And let your hips lower all the way down. If you are seated already and you want to come into that bound angle that we were practicing a little bit earlier, you can do that as well. And wherever you are, lengthening down through the tailbone, up through the crown of the head. Keep working on broadening the chest, drawing the chest forward and up. Breathe slow and steady. And then from here, we'll release, letting the hands come back behind us. We'll lower the hips down and then take the feet out in front of us. From here, let's shift the feet from side to side. And then bringing them back to stillness, let's bend the left knee, bringing the left foot in nice and close. We'll flex at the right ankle, sit up nice and tall. We'll bring our hands back behind us, tenting the fingers on the floor. Lifting up a little bit taller, pressing into those hands. Take a nice deep breath in. And then as you exhale, hinge at the hips, just as far as you comfortably can, leaning towards that right foot. You can leave your hands back behind you, or you can take them out in front of you onto the ground, one on either side of your leg, or into that space between your legs. And with each inhale, getting a little bit taller, coming out of the pose just slightly. And then as you exhale, hinging, folding. Pause here just for a few slow, deep breaths, really focusing on drawing that air in all the way down the length of the spine and then back up and out. And then we'll release, coming all the way back up, and we'll switch sides. Extending the left leg out in front, bending the right knee, bringing that right foot in nice and close. Same on this side. We'll start by tenting our fingers back behind us, sitting up a little bit taller. Flexing at the left ankle, drawing those toes back. Take a nice deep breath in. And then as you exhale, hinge at the hips, lean forward. And if you want, you can take your hands out around the front of your body. resting them either one on either side of your left leg or somewhere out in between the legs. Maybe playing with both, seeing which one works better for you right now. And then wherever you find that tension, that edge, pause and breathe. Feel the breath moving in, feel the breath moving out. And when you're ready, releasing, coming all the way back up. And we'll move into whatever final resting pose you prefer. So if you would like to come into a traditional Shavasana, you could lay down on your back, take your feet out to the top corners of your mat and let your arms extend out at your sides. If you have any low back pain or you might be pregnant, you might choose to lay on the left side of your body, using your lower arm as a pillow, curling your knees up in towards your body. And if you would prefer a seated meditation, you can stay seated in whatever position is most comfortable for you. Wherever you are, tuning into those supports that are beneath your body. If you're seated, noticing the support under your hips, under your legs. If you're laying down, noticing it all along whatever part of the body is making contact with the ground. Either up and down the length of the back of the body or all along the left side of the body. Allow yourself to settle into those supports, whatever they are. And just as we did at the beginning of the class, scanning from top to bottom, releasing any tension, any sense of holding on. Maybe choosing to close your eyes or let your gaze drift to something calming within the room. Relaxing your jaw, allowing the upper and lower teeth to separate from one another, and tongue to fall away from the roof of the mouth. Working your way all the way down to your toes, softening and releasing a little bit at a time, settling into those supports beneath the body. If you have been controlling the breath, to deepen it, even letting that go, allowing your breath to return to whatever is natural and comfortable for you. Still allowing yourself to observe the breath, noticing how the body moves as you breathe in and out. Noticing how the body fills up with fresh energy and oxygen as you inhale, and then as you exhale, find a little bit of heaviness, a little bit of softness, settle down a bit more deeply. Taking a few moments here just to be, just to breathe. Allowing yourself the time to rest and allowing your body the time it needs to integrate the movements of the practice. Before you start to move, bringing your attention into your fingertips, into your thumb, noticing where they are in space, noticing what's supporting your hand, noticing how those hands feel. And then slowly with intention, rub the thumb across the tips of the fingers and notice how that feels for you. Notice any sensation, notice any reaction to that movement. Maybe you feel warmth, maybe you feel the texture of your skin, maybe you feel your fingernails. Whatever it is for you, just noticing that sensation. And then we'll allow the movement to get a little bit bigger, wiggling those fingers, spreading them nice and wide, drawing them inwards again. Noticing how that feels in the body. You might choose to roll through your wrists. And if you're in a position to wiggle your toes and roll through ankles, feeling free to do that as well. If you're in a position to turn your head from side to side, feeling free to do that, inviting any movement into the body that feels good right now. And then wherever you're at, slowly, slowly making your way up to a seated position. So if you're laying on your back, drawing your knees to your chest and then rolling over to one side. And then anyone who's on their side can come all the way up to seated. Anyone who's been seated, if you need to change your position, you can do that as well. You can have your legs crossed or extended, or just like at the beginning of class, you can sit on a couch or a chair if that's more comfortable for you. Wherever you are, let your hips sit heavy on the ground or on your chair or couch. Lengthen up through the crown of your head and bring hands together in front of the heart. Pausing for a moment here. Thanking yourself for taking the time to practice this afternoon. I would like to express gratitude that you've taken the time to practice with me. And from the light that shines within me to the light that shines within each of you. Namaste.